Today we're looking at Latin American peoples win independence 8.1. Setting the stage. During the colonial period, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Dutch, and British colonists occupied regions south of the Rio Grande. Um, During this time, they developed their own identity. And with the wave of the Enlightenment, it really changed the ideas about how a government should be run. It also spreads the ideas of life, liberty, equality, and other democratic ideals. When we look at this, we're going to be focusing on the different class systems. So at the very top of colonial society, we had the peninsulares, and these were people who were born in Spain. They made up a very small population, and they could only hold high offices in Spanish colonial governments. Below them are the Creoles. These are Spaniards who were born in Latin America. They could not hold these high positions. They were deemed these second-class citizens, and they ultimately felt oppressed by their mother country. Below the Creoles, we have the mestizos. These were persons of mixed European and Indian ancestry. Mulattoes, being people of mixed European and African ancestry. And then at the very bottom of this social pyramid, we have enslaved Africans and Indians, and they had the least amount of rights. This is a good diagram to show the social hierarchy. This graph also does a pretty good job of showing the divisions within Spanish colonial society. We know that Native Americans made up more than half of the population, but they had the least amount of political power. Creoles lead independence. By the early 1800s, Creoles were inspired by Haitian, French, and American revolutions. Many received an education in Europe, and so these individuals, these Creoles, were influenced by the ideas of the Enlightenment. Napoleon's conquest in Spain in 1808 was that immediate trigger of the Spanish colonists to revolt. We remember that Napoleon ended up putting his brother on the throne. And so as a result, the Creoles did not feel support or any loyalty towards a non-Spanish king. We can see how there's that passage, if we think about Europe, where all those Enlightenment ideas were occurring. You have people that might have been born in Europe and then they moved to these colonies, or they might have actually been born and raised in South America, Latin America up here, and they would have been educated in Europe. One person in particular is Simon Bolivar. He was a wealthy Venezuelan and a Creole. He was a liberator, and he ultimately wanted to unite all of South American countries into one. And he led the independence in Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. Jose de San Martin, he was a Creole general, and he led independence at the same time as Bolivia, so in Argentina and Chile. And he joined forces with Bolivar in Peru and Ecuador to help liberate them in 1821. But we do see that there's some instability in Latin America. Although Bolivar wanted to have one large Latin American country, that ultimately failed. He declared himself president of these territories, but realistically, he ruled as a dictator. And so he was exiled, he came back, and then in 1830, he left the country. But after independence in Latin America, we see that there's this colonial class structure along with racism. We see military leaders who eventually become dictators to gain control of the countries. There is a heavy reliance on agriculture which made countries vulnerable to any sort of natural disasters, and that in result would destroy economies. And nationalism ultimately tore apart weaker nation states.